The most boring part of my week used to eat my mornings, pick a name or a topic, open a dozen tabs, read through pages of stuff, copy out a handful of facts that actually matter, and shape them into a tidy little brief I could act on. It is not hard work. It is just slow, repetitive grunt work, the kind that fills 2 hours and leaves you with one paragraph of useful output. And that exact shape, repetitive, judgment light, mostly reading and extracting, turned out to be the perfect thing to hand to an agent. So I built a research agent to do my grunt work, and I want to walk through honestly what it does, where it gets things wrong, and the one design choice that makes it safe to use at all. Let me describe what the agent actually does, in plain terms. I give it a target. That might be a topic I want background on, or a name I want a quick profile of. The agent searches, it gets back a set of sources, it reads through them, it pulls out the specific facts I care about, and it hands me back a clean, structured brief. Always in the same shape, the same fields in the same order, so I can scan it in seconds. That is the whole job. Search, read, extract, format. It is doing exactly the loop I used to do by hand, and it does it in a couple of minutes instead of a couple of hours. Now the part I need to be completely honest about before going any further, because it shapes the entire design. The agent gets things wrong, not constantly, but often enough that you cannot ever just trust its output blindly. It can misread a source. It can pull a fact from a page that turns out to be about a different thing entirely. It can state something with total confidence that is simply not accurate, because a language model will always produce a fluent answer whether or not the answer is right. So the moment I decided to build this, the real design question was not how do I make the agent smart? It was how do I make everything the agent gives me checkable? That question drove every other decision. Let me walk through how it is built, because the structure is the interesting part. The first piece is a search tool. The agent does not magically know things, it has a tool that runs a search and returns results. I keep this scoped, the agent searches, it does not get to wander off and do anything else with that tool. The second piece is a fetch and read step. For the sources worth reading, the agent pulls the actual page content so it is working from the real text rather than just a snippet. This matters because a brief built of search snippets alone is shallow and gets things wrong more often. The third piece is the extract step, which is where the model does its real work, reading that text and pulling out the specific facts I asked for. And the fourth piece is a strict output shape. The agent does not get to ramble. It has to return its findings in a fixed structure with defined fields, because a fixed structure is something I can check at a glance and something my own code can validate. Let me be specific about the fetch and read step, because it is the difference between a shallow agent and a useful one, and most people skip it. The easy version is to let the agent work off search result snippets alone, those 1 or 2 line previews you see under each search hit. It is tempting because it is fast and cheap, no fetching needed, but snippets are shallow and often misleading. A snippet can make a page look relevant when the full page is about something else, and it never contains enough to extract real facts from, so my agent does the heavier thing. For the sources that look worth it, it fetches the actual page and reads the real text, working from the full content instead of a teaser. Yes, this is slower and it costs a bit more because there is more text to process, but the quality difference is enormous. A brief built from real source text is something I can rely on. A brief built from snippets is a guess dressed up as research. That one decision, read the real page, is most of what separates this agent from a toy. That strict output shape is doing more work than it looks like. When an agent can write whatever it wants, its mistakes hide inside fluent prose. A paragraph that reads smoothly can contain a fact that is just wrong, and nothing about the smoothness warns you. But when the agent has to fill in defined fields, the gaps and the oddities stand out. A field that should have a date and instead has a vague phrase is a flag. A field that is empty is a flag. A value that looks out of range is a flag. Forcing the output into structure turns checking from reading carefully between the lines into scanning a form for things that look off. That is a much easier and more reliable job, both for me and for the validation code behind it. Here is the single most important design choice. the one that makes the whole thing safe to use. The agent gathers, I decide. Nothing ever acts on the agent's raw output automatically. The brief it produces is a draft, a starting point, a fast first pass. It is never the final word, and it never triggers an action on its own. I read it, I sanity check anything important, and I make the actual decision. The agent is doing the slow gathering and the rough drafting, which is exactly the part that used to eat my mornings. I am doing the deciding, which is exactly the part that needs a human and always will. That division is the whole reason this works. An agent that gathers and a human who decides is a genuinely good combination. An agent that gathers and also decides and also acts with no human in the loop is how you end up acting on a confident mistake. Let me give you a concrete sense of the verification layer, because gathers and decides sounds nice, but the details matter. When the brief comes back, the facts that actually matter to my decision are the ones I check against the sources. The agent includes where it got each thing so I can glance at the source rather than taking the claim on faith. For facts that do not matter much, I let them ride because the cost of a small error there is tiny. For facts that would drive a real decision, I verify. This is a deliberate split of attention. I do not re-research everything because that would defeat the purpose. I spend my checking effort exactly where being wrong would be expensive, and I let the agent's speed carry the rest. That is the efficient version of human in the loop. Not check nothing and not check everything, but check the things that matter. Let me also be honest about the limit of the agent that I had to design around, which is that it is only as good as what it can find. If the information I need is genuinely not out there in a form the agent can reach, the agent does not magically produce it. And here is the dangerous part. A language model under pressure to fill in a field will sometimes produce a plausible sounding value rather than admit it could not find one. So an empty result can come back looking like a real answer. I handle this by making it explicitly okay for the agent to say it did not find something. A field marked not found is a perfectly good answer, far better than a confident guess. And my own checking pays special attention to facts that seem to have appeared from nowhere, the ones with no clear source behind them, because those are the ones most likely to be invented. Teaching the agent that I did not find this is an acceptable answer, and rewarding it for honesty over completeness, remove the whole class of quiet fabrication. I want to talk about the failure I did not expect because it is instructive. Early on, the agent would sometimes produce a brief that looked perfect, well-structured, confident, complete, and was quietly built on a source that was about the wrong thing. It had searched, found a page that matched the words but not the meaning, read it diligently, and extracted facts that were accurate about the wrong subject. That is the scariest kind of failure, because everything about the output looks right. The fix was not a smarter model. It was making the agent always show its sources and making myself actually glance at them for anything important. The moment the sourcing is visible, that failure mode becomes catchable, because a quick look reveals the source is off topic even when the brief reads beautifully. Let me put a rough shape on the time math, because it is the whole reason this exists. The old manual version was maybe 2 hours per target. Almost all of it the slow grind of searching, opening tabs, reading and copying. The agent version is a couple of minutes of runtime plus a few minutes of me checking the facts that actually matter. Call it 10 minutes of my attention total instead of 2 hours. But here is the honest part I want to stress. Those 10 minutes are not optional, and they are the most important 10 minutes in the whole process. The agent did not remove my involvement. It concentrated it. It took away the 2 hours of low-value labor and left me with the few minutes of high-value checking and deciding. That is a genuinely great trade, but it is a trade, not a disappearance. Anyone selling you an agent that does the whole thing, including the deciding with zero human time, is selling you the confident mistake I described, just hidden until it bites. So what did I actually gain? The honest answer is time and consistency, not magic. The grunt work that took 2 hours takes a couple of minutes of agent run, plus a few minutes of me checking the parts that matter, and the briefs come out in the same shape every time, which makes them faster to use than the slightly different format I would produce by hand, depending on my mood. What I did not gain is the ability to stop thinking. The agent did not replace my judgment. It replaced the tab opening and the reading and the copying, which is the part I was happy to lose. The deciding stayed exactly where it belongs, with me. And I think that is the right and honest framing for almost every useful agent. It takes the grunt work, not the judgment. If you are thinking about building something like this for your own repetitive research, here is the order I would suggest. Start with the output shape, decide exactly what fields you want, and force the agent to fill them. Then give it the minimum tools to gather, a search and a way to read sources. Make it show where every fact came from. And build your own habit of checking the facts that would drive a real decision while letting the rest ride. Do that, and you get a genuinely useful assistant that saves real time. Skip the sourcing and the checking, and you get a confident machine that will eventually hand you a beautiful brief built on the wrong page. The deeper point is that the best use of an agent right now is not autonomy, it is acceleration. It is not the thing that decides and acts while you sleep. It is the thing that does the slow gathering so that when you sit down, the grunt work is already done and your job is just the deciding. An agent that drafts and a human who decides beats either one working alone. And it is the pattern I keep coming back to across everything I build. And if you build one of these and only remember one rule, remember that the agent gathers and you decide, and never let those two roles blur. The moment you let the agent's output act on its own, the moment something downstream trusts the brief without a human looking, you have handed your decisions to a thing that will occasionally be confidently wrong. Keep the gathering on the agent where it saves you real hours, and keep the deciding on yourself where being right actually matters. That line is not a limitation of today's tools that better models will erase. It is the right division of labor, and it is the one I would keep even if the agent got twice as good. If you like AI shown the way it actually works once you have to live with its mistakes, real systems with honest trade-offs, that is what I do here. So subscribe and follow along. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.